Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I haven't filmed a video in so long. I was sick. I'm feeling a lot better now. I'm very grateful. I was also in this mental haze period. I still am in all aspects of my life. Like I can't feel and think clearly. There's been a lot of changes in my life, and one of them has been deciding to shut down my pop-up bakery business, Disco Light Bakehouse, LLC, specializing in fresh baked cinnamon buns with all natural ingredients. I'll be talking about why I decided to shut it down, how I started the business, what was my inspiration behind it, and I'll share with you some lessons that I learned along my journey. If you're interested in setting up a food business, bakery, restaurant, or something around food, this video is for you. Otherwise, it's just a personal story about me trying something new outside of my comfort zone during an uncertain time. And I realized that everything around us is always changing, right? There's never really a stable time to do anything. It's just sometimes you just gotta roll the dice and go do it. Anyway, I'm not really worried about you watching the whole video or me getting more views or subscribers. I used to be concerned about that. Now I'm just more concerned about me being authentic and real and speaking my truth. If you do watch the whole thing, thank you, and please like, comment, and subscribe if you value what I have to say, and support me if this message is for you. If it's not, then that's cool too. Some herbal, I don't know, it's not, it just clears out my sinuses. It smells really good. So what inspired me to start this pop-up bakery business? In 2020, I was bartending at this modern Korean restaurant, and I lost my job like many of us. The restaurants were shut down. I really had no idea what I was doing. I went home to my house in Long Island, started spending a lot of time with my papa, my grandmother, started learning her recipes, spending more time with my mom and dad, and cooking more. You know, I was always working in the food industry, always learning how to cook food outside of myself, but it was really fulfilling was learning the food of my childhood, you know, learning the food that's been always around me in clear sight, but I always pushed it away. And me personally, I have a passion for baking. Like I enjoy baking cookies, brownies, different types of bread, like pizza. No, I'm not so good at it. I just enjoy the process. It teaches me a lot about patience, putting love into something, and then the final product comes out. I also like cooking because you can kind of freestyle, add whatever you want, whip something up together, no recipe. But anyway, one morning, it was like a weekend morning, my mom, and we're all home in the house driving each other crazy. So my mom started baking as well, and she's also very good. She's also very creative. She made a batch of fresh baked cinnamon buns, and I remember the house smelled beautiful. Okay, I was like, wow, this cinnamon flavor, the cinnamon scent. You know, scent is one of our strongest senses. That's why in like Disney World, they like have machines that spray out like cinnamon and like vanilla because they draw you in. But I just remember being overwhelmed by the smell of the fresh baked cinnamon buns, and I was just like, wow, this is really delicious. Bakeries like Cinnabon weren't open, so I was like, hey, why don't I sell this? My mom was like, yeah, that's a good idea, you should sell it. Let me be clear, I never loved cinnamon buns growing up. I never really ate them. It was never really a thing. I haven't always been into such sweet desserts. I actually like more Italian desserts and French desserts because that's what I was more used to. But I'm gonna make my version of this, something fresh baked, all natural, not so sweet. I really want to highlight that quality cinnamon flavor, and I want it to be nice and fluffy. Like an Asian milk bread and a brioche bread, I wanted something in the middle. What I did at first was try to assemble the team to help me do this during uncertain times. I was like, I can't do this myself. I didn't really believe in myself, so I was like, I need people who have certain skills to complement my skills, right? And I went to cooking school. I've worked in restaurant management. I'm pretty versatile. I believe in my skill set, but I very much feel insecure and lack self-confidence in some areas of my life at certain point. I reconnected with some of my former colleagues. One was a sous chef and one was a pastry chef that we used to work at a restaurant, and I asked them if they wanted to be part of this and grow this together. They said yes. We started planning, made a couple recipes, tried out different batches. At first it was all fun, and when we started diving into the nitty-gritty of how is this supposed to taste, what do we want the name to be, and the real business aspects of it, we started really to disagree. It got to the point where people's expectations of what we were doing had shifted. We no longer were in alignment with one another. This was a very tense period of my life because I'm not one to be confrontational, but just the feeling of losing these connections due to differing beliefs was not easy. I don't think it was easy for either one of us. So we decided to part our separate ways. I shouldn't have to talk more about that. It happened, and I wish nothing but the best. And we were doing it during a certain time. We're just happy to be alive, but still, it's really important if you want to go into business with anyone. Be clear on your role and the expectations of yourself and one another, and then get that in writing so you can refer back to it. I was at a crossroads whether or not I should continue the business, and I decided to continue it. I was just like, let me try to set up the operation by myself. I went back to the drawing board, I went back to the kitchen, started making my own cinnamon bun recipes. The name came to me naturally, Disco Light Bakehouse, because when I was younger I wanted to be a DJ, and I always liked the music and the good vibe and disco ball, you know, it's just fun. A little bit before my time, but it sounds like a good time. I made the recipe many times. I started the Instagram site, started taking photos. This was during 2020, and I was thinking like, what should be my strategy to sell these cinnamon buns? I'm in Long Island, New York, and I thought everyone is home, so I should target families. And who's the leader of the families in most cases? It's the mom. So what I did was I went to mom-focused Facebook groups, like Long Island moms, and I was like, hey, I started making these fresh baked cinnamon buns. I'm gonna be at this location, this parking lot, this shopping center on this day at this time. If you like to pre-order, you can. I started dropping off in parking lots, and I actually got some hits from people. I got like 2 or 3 orders, which was really special. I was surprised, and I would make them at home. I got a New York State home processing license, which is very easy to get, and it's free. I got a couple orders from the mom Facebook groups. They started posting on it on social media. I also ran a giveaway post to 3 people, and I chose micro scale influencers that didn't have like 500,000 followers, just like people that liked food and posted it. That created some traction. With more and more traction, I began to gain somewhat of a small following, and I was just selling classic cinnamon bun. I wasn't going crazy with the flavors. I was like, let me just keep it simple, making it in my house. One day, to my surprise, I got approached by a reporter from Patch.com. It's like a local publication. They did a write-up on me about how I started this business, and that really jolted the business up. I got a huge surge in orders the next week after the article came out. I remember I planned to do a drop-up in Bayside, Queens. It's a nice middle-class area, and I got an order for over 100 buns. Good morning. So I just stayed up all night making cinnamon buns. I made 96, getting ready for the weekend. I started around 7 p.m. and now it's almost 5 o'clock. But I felt alive, I felt energized. Thank you everyone for your support. And I was selling them first for the home, so I was selling them in a aluminum container with 6 buns that could be taken out and reheated in the oven, because I wanted people in the house to reheat them. The house could smell really nice. In a box, reheating instructions and a little information on how I started it. But when I got this huge order, I was used to making cinnamon buns in my house, 2 or 3 orders, but this order was over 100 buns. I didn't know what to do. I wasn't ready for this, and that's why I think it's important to go with the flow of life and not really be too set on how things are supposed to be. I got a huge order. I stayed up all night. I went to the location. I dropped it off. People are happy. I was surprised. It was a great moment in my journey. But then after that, the environment around us is always shifting, and when everything was on lockdown, it was okay to drop off in parking lots. But then things started opening up, and I was like, oh, maybe a farmer's market would be a good next step. I applied to a couple farmer's markets and food truck events around Long Island where I exhibited, and I think farmer's markets were great. It's a nice community of vendors. They're very supportive. I met a lot of nice people, and most of the guests are really nice and they like to support local. And also, it's a good way to test your product without breaking the bank. Farmers markets and events, they don't charge you that much to exhibit, maybe $30-$40. You pay for the tent, you pay for the table. You are able to make up your costs and make a little bit of profit. A downside of the farmers markets and events is sometimes the weather. A rainy day is a rainy day and you can't really plan against Mother Nature. Also, sometimes just the flow of the event, whether it's like a holiday or something, you're not going to get some traffic. You're really rolling the dice anytime you go to one of these events, no matter what anyone tells you. Oh, this event is good. No, you're rolling the dice all the time. I had a really good time. Started testing out different flavors like chocolate chip, matcha white chocolate chip, tiramisu flavor. I really enjoyed the creative aspect of it. Got some good feedback. I also, during this time, did a catering gig for elementary school and a couple other like small gigs here and there. Everything was sporadic and nothing was really stable, and I think when you open a business like this, keep in mind that you're not really going to have stable hits all the time. I was mainly focusing on one product, and it was a lot for me to buy the ingredients, make the product, wrap up the product, and then deliver the product or exhibit it. It took a lot of my time, energy, and money. If you count my time into this, I wasn't making money. At these farmers markets too, I was selling trays of 6, and then I was selling individually wrapped buns in like a clamshell plastic container. It came to a point where like the cycle of exhibiting at farmers markets was complete, and I wanted to try something else, something where I could see more stability, and that was selling wholesale to New York City cafes. With that, I needed to move into a commissary kitchen so I can get the proper licensing to sell wholesale. You need a food processing license to sell wholesale and to make the buns in the kitchens. Applied for that. I signed up for commissary kitchen in Long Island City, Queens. I did a couple test shifts in the kitchen to work out the kinks. It's a big learning curve to go from like a small tiny oven in my home to a giant circular oven, like it cooked fast. Also the mixing bowl was big, the mixer was big. They had a proofing temperature room. It took me a lot of time, and I definitely burned my cinnamon buns a lot. During this time when I'm learning the kitchen, I also exhibited during December at Brooklyn Fleece. It's a touristy spot in Dumbo, Brooklyn, right by the Brooklyn Bridge. It tends to draw a lot of people, but during that time there was COVID surges. It was really cold. When I did the event for 2 weeks, and why I did the event was because I wanted to practice making the buns in the commissary kitchen, so I wanted to sell the buns. So I went to this event, and it was all flea market stuff, to be honest. There was no food vendors. It might have not been the best event, but it was last minute, and I wanted to capitalize on the location. Both weekends, the weather was too cold. There was a COVID surge. It was just not a good vibe. I was pretty let down after those 2 weeks, and I became upset with myself and my family and my partner. I was very emotionally ungrounded, and I felt really bad. You know, I think that happens as part of a business. Like, you're gonna have rainy days, you're gonna have days where you're gonna quote unquote fail. I don't think you ever fail, but you're gonna feel like that. It's important to keep going and keep moving forward. Anyway, after the holidays, I spent so much of my energy calling, emailing, just showing up at New York City cafes. I met with some of the owners. They tried my buns. They looked at the size. They're like, oh, can we make it smaller? Can you give us a cheaper price? I said, yes, yes, yes. Again, spending so much of my energy going around. I stopped doing the markets at this point. I was just like, please, can I just get a break? Finally, after like 6 weeks of going around and trying to negotiate with these cafes and sending contracts to them, there's another surge of COVID. Their businesses are down. And during this time, companies are back to their office, but in a hybrid model. There's not so much traffic to these cafes. And a lot of companies now are more accommodating and supportive of their workers, and they have like coffee and pastries. So actually, the 3 cafes that were originally interested in running a test with me to sell my buns ended up dropping out. Only one wanted to do it, but I was like, it doesn't make sense to do one and pay $200 for the kitchen. Then I was like, this may be a good avenue, but it's not what's best for me right now. Also considering that cafes wanted the buns super small and they wanted them at a cheap price, I wouldn't be making money, and it was kind of too much work for me on my part. So I was like, this might not be the best option at my time. So then I decided to refocus on some larger scale events during the summer. I applied to larger scale events in New York City and even out in Long Island at the Hamptons, because people go out there during the summer, and I got accepted. I got the paperwork to a lot of these events, but for some of them, I just got hit with a lot of certifications and requirements that I needed for certain events, especially out in Long Island. It was like another $100, $200 here and there. They needed this form and stuff. It began to be too much. I was spending so much money on like these permits, and I was like, is this even worth it? Taking all my energy, and I'm constantly changing, adapting my business. It doesn't feel good when I'm getting hit with more costs all the time. All the events that I was doing with the kitchen and stuff, I was always in the negative. I wouldn't even cover my costs. And again, I'm doing this by myself. I don't think I had the operation in a place to where I could hire someone to make the buns, but I would definitely hire someone to make the buns. Also during this time, I took on 2 high school interns. New York State has a program where they give high school students exposure to companies. I was meeting with these 2 high school students 2 times a week on Zoom, and I was having them help with social media and research and telling them about the business and stuff. That was really gratifying. I was learning a lot about them. But going into these events, I wasn't feeling the same spark that I once had. When I was making the buns in my home and selling to farmers markets around Long Island, there's a real joy and passion in making the buns, going to the event, seeing the smile on the customer's face, and I was just covering the cost and maybe making a little bit, so I was happy. But when I was going to these larger scale events and making in the kitchen, it became more like a job. It became more like a chore, and also I was losing money on each event. Trying to build brand awareness, it just lost that spark for me. And yes, maybe I could have hired someone and pushed through it, but for me personally, I just didn't feel the spark anymore to continue forward. I went on a solo trip to Sedona, Arizona. During that trip, I decided for myself that I don't want to continue my cinnamon bun pop-up bakery business focus anymore. It was like a year and a half that I did it, just because it doesn't resonate with what I want to do in my life right now, but I still learned a lot. So then I came back, I canceled all the events, I got refunds on 75% of them. That's where I am now. So in reflecting back on my experience, my journey, I definitely learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, proved to myself that I am capable of doing something outside of my comfort zone, like setting up my business, showing up for myself when I don't want to, when the odds are against me, showing up to events with like 3 hours of sleep, making the buns all day, not making any money. I was consistent with myself, trying different avenues. I think what I learned is that this theme has been shown in different aspects of my life, but it's finally like resonating with me on another level, is to not really be attached to outcome and go with the flow, so to speak, more. Still have these goals in place, but it might not happen how you think it's going to happen. Change is always going to happen. External influences are always going to happen around us, but it's how we adapt and adjust. There's a lot of things that I could have done better, like be clear with my target audience and the specific events and my brand messaging and stuff. But I think whenever you start a business, there's this testing phase that needs to happen to determine who your target audience is, where you want to sell your product, and what the brand means to you. That stuff can be defined from a logical point of view, but you really get a feel for how your brand is after actually being in it. That's how I think it is. Because if I sell my buns in New York City versus Long Island, it's a different target audience. I needed to see where I fit in, and I was trying to see amidst the changing environment like COVID restrictions and stuff. But I think it's important to be flexible, but then also once you find your set target audience, then optimize, but don't have your feet planted too long, because things could change like that. So I think it's important to adapt and adjust. I also probably, if I would have continued momentum, needed to hire someone to help me with the production of cinnamon buns, because in a bakery business, you don't make a lot of money, but the actual process of making the product takes a long time. So if I could have had support in that aspect, it would have helped me a lot. I also think when you do something like this and you work with people, it's important to set expectations. So these are just some of the lessons that I learned from my experience setting up this business. And again, when you set up a business, your own business, you wear many hats. You have different roles, from web development, sales, marketing, logistics. I'm really grateful in this crash course on entrepreneurship, my first LLC. And even though it didn't work out, I can take these skills, I can take this knowledge, I can take this better understanding of myself into my next venture. So I hope by me telling you this can inspire you to try something. I could also inspire you to keep going or see your situation in a different light. If it didn't work out now, it doesn't mean that it's not meant to be. It just might mean that it's not meant to be right now, or you have something better for you coming in the future. But don't be discouraged. I feel like when we fail, so to speak, we can dip back into this stable, logical mindset, which is okay. But I think life is all about joy, spontaneity, and some experiences, and just going with the flow. Don't lose that spirit, that energy too. We need the balance between logic and your heart. Thank you for supporting me. People that showed up at the market, people that purchased my product, people that wrote nice reviews for me. I'm really grateful. You made this possible for me. You made these lessons possible for me. The influencers that I did when I ran the giveaway, thank you so much. Thank you. So that leads me to right now. I'm on another cycle of my life where I'm just trying to find another office job. My first job out of college was at an advertising agency. Then I went to restaurants, then I did my entrepreneurship thing. And I never thought I'd work in an office again, but I want to do something around food and hospitality in an office setting. And at first I was like, I don't want to work in the matrix again. I don't want to be stuck at this 9 to 5. But I realized I'm a different person right now, and I have a new energy. I have a new perspective. I'm going to bring this new balance, this new perspective, this new sense of who I am into anything I do. And I realize now that I don't want to be stuck to something my whole life. My philosophy is, what can I experience now in this moment that can best suit my highest self? And that might be for 6 months. That might be for a year. That might be for 2 years. It doesn't have to be 30 years like our previous generation, okay? Like my parents' generation. They wanted to get that stable job, work for 30 years. Me personally, I don't think that's the case anymore. I want to go with the flow more, feel what different opportunities come my way, and adapt and adjust to the changes in life, because I feel like lately, with the financial markets collapsing, the cryptocurrency markets collapsing, there's a lot of wars and stuff. I feel like we can never really control our outside influences, right? So it's important to be nimble, to have one foot planted and one foot ready to go at all times. Anyway, thank you so much. This is a long video. If it resonated with you, please like, comment, and subscribe. I wish you nothing but blessings. I believe in you. I hope you be better than me. I want you to achieve what your heart desires, and just know that me and you are not that different. You can still do anything. It doesn't matter your age. My mom has started her online jewelry business and she's a lot older, so you can always do it, okay? All right, anyway, take care. Peace.